Hey guys, welcome back. In today's video, we are talking about the short desperation, the Citadel exposure, shorts losing 1.2 billion a week, and many more in this video. Firstly, we're taking a look at this. Smells like desperation to sell the narratives. What we're looking at is the recent news for AMC, where we are seeing Citigroup are maintaining their sell rating on AMC. You can see here where Citigroup maintains sell on AMC Entertainment Holdings. And so this is something that we have seen with multiple firms, especially the firms who are short of AMC. In the past, you will see firms that have put sell ratings on AMC like Credit Suisse and of course Citigroup, and you've both seen what happened to Credit Suisse and of course what Citigroup also has. And so this is what we know with how shorts are always trying to bring down AMC. When we take a look at the recent fundamentals, we've already talked enough about it, but you understand how firms view it as an opportunity. And even prior to the earnings, you will see that firms with no short interest in AMC whatsoever, firms who aren't trapped with billions of synthetics, all gave AMC a buy rating and all accumulating buys in AMC, whereas the short sellers are still trying to go hard at him to create people to sell. And you have to remember, Citigroup is in a very bad position. You can see when we take a look at their derivative positions, you'll see that they have over $53 trillion. You can see for Citibank and at the second place. Now, when it comes to Citibank, we've talked about them plenty of times in the past. The reason for this is their constant short exposure to AMC, but also how they have and were one of the first ones to be found out that they had synthetic shares of AMC. The Brazilian ADR shares of AMC is something that we've mentioned in this channel plenty of times for a very long time, for the last 4 years. But it also just showcases how they were one of the earliest short sellers and one of the earliest synthetics creators of AMC. But then you will understand why they have an interest and why it benefits them to obviously have a sell rating on AMC, to then talk about why you should sell your AMC, and that's what we've seen. And remember, we talked about Credit Suisse earlier in the video. When Credit Suisse wasn't bankrupt, they had a big sell rating on AMC, and they said that AMC should be worth below $1. They gave AMC a 70-cent price target. Now looking at AMC right now, it's not at 70 cents, it's at 286. Even that is extremely undervalued for where we think it should be, but is more importantly, firstly, it never reached the sell target that these institutions give. But secondly, is about how Credit Suisse, since giving that sell target of AMC, has gone bankrupt, but AMC has still stayed alive and is doing extremely well. So you understand why these short sellers and why we should never trust the ratings, because they do it for their own benefit. It is an extremely biased view, and they want to do it because they want people to sell their AMC shares. And then you can see here with the exposure that Citadel has. So we've seen the AMC GME Citadel swap dealer financial condition, and you can see it's extremely suspect how you have a total notional value of 944 billion in derivative contract value, but out of it, only reporting 6.514 billion is owned to them in assets, and in liabilities, they only own 4.696 billion in swaps. Also in Bloom, the equity contracts, they have only $4 million, yet the notional amount is 221 million. And in green, they only put up 1.7 billion in cash collaterals. So Citadel is saying they barely have any exposure, and the counterparty to the swap has a high exposure, which would most likely be Bank of America. Now, I highly advise anyone to take a look at this. You can see it's obviously been color graded already, so you'll know exactly what they're talking about. But it's about understanding the exposure Citadel has. Now, what we have seen in the past is how these firms underplay their exposure by a long margin. And we've seen this with how when regulations take stress tests on banks as well, they talk about how actually once you've conducted the test, they will find out that banks doesn't actually have the margin to maintain any of the risk that they proposed in the past. And this is the same with Citadel and any other firms as well. Now, when it comes to this especially, and talking about the fact they have a high exposure and is exposed to Bank of America, it also isn't surprising when you can see Bank of America is fourth on this particular list, coming in at 25 trillion. Now, we mentioned about this list a lot, and something that you'll find extremely interesting about this list is that 3 of the top 4, so coming in at 2, coming in at 3, and coming in at 4, all firms have interest in shorting AMC. We've already talked about Citibank. We've just talked about Bank of America in terms of talking about the exposure with the Citadel swaps. Now, I want to talk about that both Citadel and Bank of America has exposure, but you have to understand is that Bank of America also has the ability to recall these loans that they've lent out to Citadel in the past. But then it's looking at the fact that also we have coming in at number 3, Goldman Sachs. All 3 of these firms have a short interest in AMC. And so this is what we talked about with how short sellers can't afford their positions to explode. When you see the fact that they have derivative positions that are in the trillions, coming in at 53, ranging down to 25 trillion, you already know that they are in a position where anything that goes wrong can easily blow up the whole economy because of how big their positions are. And this is why we always see regulations turning a blind eye, is why we see these firms pouring in billions and billions of dollars, is because if they don't, then they're at stake of losing 20 to 50 trillions of dollars. And that's why we always see them do this. And once again, it's very interesting the fact that the short sellers of AMC are also top 4 in the derivatives list: Citibank, Goldman Sachs, and of course Bank of America. And then we're seeing at this, I would say that they double down times 10 minimum, we will win. So a historical context, and it's what we talked about with how shorts are willing to spend billions of dollars to make sure that they don't lose trillions of dollars. So you can see in 2021, AMC short squeeze cost shorts over $1.2 billion in a week, yet many didn't close, doubling down instead. Naked short allegations persisted, with FTDs hitting 19 trillion in December and over 40 million for ape shares in August 2022. And so this is just talking about how much the shorts were losing. And you have to bear in mind that this was in 2021, where there weren't as many synthetics created as there was now. But then it's also talking about, we have to remember, the firms that were involved back in 2021 are the very same firms now. Once again, we have firms like Citadel, firms like Virtue. We also have Citibank, one of the first synthetics. We have Goldman Sachs shorting AMC. We have Bank of America, and I want to go further into this, is that they don't have direct interest in terms of they're not actually taking the short position on AMC. However, they are lending out a lot of money to firms like Citadel, who are then taking a massive short position in AMC. And so both parties have exposure to the AMC short positions. And so this is what we talked about in terms of, because of the fact that we've seen them lose so much money, we know that they are only still willing to do this because there's so much more money at risk if they don't suppress AMC anymore. And you have to realize they'll gaslight you and tell you how much the stock is down. They won't acknowledge they average a daily balance of 800,000 shares of FTDs a day for 4.5 years to do that. They won't acknowledge FTX/tokens. They won't acknowledge media arms of hedge funds running hundreds, even thousands of hit pieces. And so you have to understand, when we take a look at AMC and we see the fact is at 286, we have to understand this isn't because AMC is doing bad. This isn't because AMC investors are selling, but rather these institutions dumping millions and billions of dollars every single day to not only keep the price where it is, but also to try and bring the price down even more. We just talked about the example at the very start of the video, how Credit Suisse gave AMC a price target of 70 cents, but yet they're the first company to go bankrupt. And AMC is not bankrupt, and if anything, doing the very opposite of that and improving fundamentally. And so this is what you have to realize, is that when the price of AMC going down, it isn't a reflection of where AMC should be, but rather a reflection of just how much suppression there is. Now, I can't give a definitive price target on AMC saying that it should be worth exactly 200, exactly 300. However, what we can say is that AMC is extremely undervalued. It's never seen real price discovery. And when you have the two together, allowing to see its real price discovery, allowing it then to actually allow the market to show where it should be worth, I do believe that it will go into the hundreds of dollars, not including a squeeze. And you have to realize that the plan is to knock AMC down anywhere from $0 to 0.05 cents every single day until apes capitulate and surrender their shares to the institutions who want them all of a sudden. And so this is what we talked about with what the incentives of these short sellers are, what they're constantly trying to do, but they fail to do so because apes stay strong. Now, as always, none of this is ever financial advice, so do take what I say grain of salt. Make sure to do your own due diligence and research, and I'll catch you guys next time.